On May 7th, my Bitcoin 60-day model outputted a prediction. It said that Bitcoin would hit $118,000 in 60 days. And at the time, Bitcoin was sitting between $95,000 and $97,000. And back then, when this model made this prediction, I posted publicly on my YouTube channel a video sharing the exact prediction amount and going into all the details around the prediction. And a lot of people were hating on the prediction and kind of making fun of me because at the time, this prediction sounded absolutely absurd for a number of reasons. We'd just come through the Trump tariff sell-off, so people were just extremely bearish. This prediction required Bitcoin to surpass its old all-time high, which is a really challenging thing to do, and it's not something that Bitcoin does all the time. And typically when it runs up to all-time high, it gets rejected and kind of gets pushed back down. So it's like not an easy feat for the price to do. And also, this was during May, and there's like a really commonly held belief in crypto called sell in May and go away, where a lot of traders rotate out of crypto because they believe that the summer months will actually be more bearish for crypto because people are on vacation and there's less liquidity, etc. And so they don't want to be in the markets because they think typically during that time, Bitcoin's price is going to go down, not up. So at that time, you had all these experts who were saying the exact opposite. They were saying that Bitcoin was at 95, 97K, but we're going to actually retrace and retest the 80K level from that point as we went into the summer months. But despite all those expert opinions and everyone being bearish, over the next 60 days, Bitcoin's price did indeed climb up and surpass its old all-time high, going from 95,000 all the way up to 112,000. However, when July 6th came around, which was 60 days from the date of the prediction, the price of Bitcoin was not at $118,000. In fact, it wasn't even at $112,000. It was sitting around $108,000. So I got a lot of people coming to the comments or sending me messages saying that the model failed, and they always knew it was going to fail because it was just stupid. And who was I to think that I could, build this model that was able to accurately predict the price of Bitcoin? And it was just a stupid belief that I had, and I need to wake up. And all kinds of just crazy hate I was getting on July 6th because people believed that this model had failed. But just 5 days later, like clockwork, Bitcoin rocketed up to $118,000, just as the model had predicted. And this isn't even the first time that I've tested this model. This is actually the second time that I've tested this model. And both times, the model has been eerily accurate in its predictions, despite popular consensus and despite a lot of people telling me that there was no way the model would be correct in its prediction. And what's even more crazy is what the model is saying that Bitcoin is about to do next, which, if true, I believe will catch everyone off guard because I believe it's not what anyone is expecting is going to happen next. And really quick, one of my biggest obsessions is trying to solve the 4-year cycle. I've never been convinced that the 4-year cycle is caused by the halving, and I've always been convinced that it's actually caused by something else that most people aren't correctly identifying, and that if I could correctly identify the underlying causes of the 4-year cycle, I would be able to better predict where the crypto market is going next. And so I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on research, data, and tools to try to solve this problem. And not only that, I've spent hundreds of hours listening to podcasts or books on the history of money, the history of finance, the history of liquidity and macro in the Fed and everything in between, all for the purpose of trying to build like a better framework of understanding about why the crypto market does what it does and what it's going to do next. And at this point, I probably put well over 1,000 hours into these models. I'm continually improving them. And the first time I ran the 60-day model was back on March 9th, 2025. And that first time that I ran the model, it outputted a prediction that said that Bitcoin would hit $97,401 on May 8th, 2025. And I shared this prediction with the Obsidian Council in an announcement post on March 12th, 2025. At the time, Bitcoin was trading between $79,000 and $80,000 after a steep decline in price. And again, similarly, at the time, this prediction was against the consensus. Like, it sounded really absurd. Price had been selling off ever since we had that like December, the Trump rally at the end of 2024. But when the Fed came out hawkish, price had just continued to decline and hadn't really gained any more momentum. So a lot of people were feeling really bearish at the time. And so this prediction just seemed really out there. And as more time passed, this prediction just became more and more absurd because, as we know, after that, we had this big Trump tariff sell-off where prices really fell off a cliff, going below 80,000, and people were calling for like the 60,000. Some people were calling for the 50,000s, and it just seemed like it wasn't possible for the model to get back on track, for price to somehow go all the way from, what was it, like $76,000 all the way back up to $97,000 in the short amount of time that we had left. Fast forward, however, to May 8th at 12:56 a.m., UTC, Bitcoin hit exactly $97,401. Absurdly, somehow nailing the exact price on the exact date, which is not typically how the model is supposed to function. That was a lot of luck. Typically, the model will be off on a little bit of timing, a little bit of price, a little bit of date. Like it's not meant to be an exact oracle level, wizard level prediction. It's meant to be an approximate prediction with an average rate of error, considering it's near impossible to get perfect enough data to be able to predict, like what's Trump thinking or what's he going to tweet out today or who's going to start a war tomorrow and all that kind of stuff that could, vastly affect the price on a day-to-day basis. Still, the prediction being so on point during its first run gave me a lot of hope that I at least had some sort of edge in this predictive process and that I was on to something. And it was at this point that I ran the model again. And if you guys remember, I did an updated version of the model and I ran the original version. The updated version predicted Bitcoin would hit 118,000. The old legacy original version predicted that Bitcoin would hit $119,000. And I ended up making a big video about this, going through the exact prediction, etc. Which if you go back on my channel, the video is titled, "This AI Predicted Bitcoin's Price 60 Days Ago. What's Next?" If you want to go watch it and just verify what I'm saying, that the model did, in fact, 60 days ago predict these things, you can see it all in the video. And although the model was slightly off in its timing by 5 days, Bitcoin did go all the way from $95,000 to $118,000 65 days later, despite Bitcoin having to print a new all-time high and the majority of experts saying the exact opposite. And at this point, that's two predictions that this model was able to predict correctly 60 days in advance. 2 times 60 days in advance, this model was able to make a prediction that was non-consensus and extremely non-obvious. It's not like it was obvious that Bitcoin was going to go from 76K to 97K, or that Bitcoin was going to go from 95K to 118K. These were non-obvious moves that no one was anticipating, which has given me quite a bit of confidence that these models really do have some sort of predictive edge and they really are following some sort of real pattern that is somewhat predictive of Bitcoin's price movement. Okay, enough of that. I know what everyone's here for. Everyone wants to know what the model is predicting next. And similarly to last time, I am continually always improving these models. And so the way that this prediction works is I have the new and improved version of the model that outputs one prediction, and then I have the previous upgraded version of the model that outputted the 118K prediction. The original version of the model has now been depreciated and is no longer being used, as the 118K prediction version of the model was on point, was accurate, did work well. And because I know that's a little bit confusing, I just want to say it again. I'm still using the original version from last time that correctly predicted 118K. I depreciated the original version that correctly predicted 97K, but all these versions are built off of that exact model. And then I have a new upgraded version that basically just has more sanity checks, more safeguards, and some upgraded predictive features that should make it slightly more accurate than the previous version. And to start off, the old 60-day model is predicting that on September 11th, 60 days from the date that I ran the prediction, the price of Bitcoin will be sitting at around $126,000, which I know right now because last time I checked, price was like, it crossed like 122K this morning. I don't know where it's sitting at right now, 119K, 119K, almost 120K right now. So I know some of you guys are probably like, wait a minute, 126K in 60 days, price just ran all the way up to 122K. That seems off to me because maybe right now you're wildly bullish because price just ran up and you're thinking we're going to 140K, 150K, etc. So maybe that doesn't line up with what you believe Bitcoin's price is going to do. But I will highlight that 2 times in a row, this model has been correct despite popular consensus feeling otherwise, that Bitcoin should do another thing. The model was correct, people were wrong. And I'll also highlight a second thing, which is that this doesn't necessarily mean that Bitcoin will stop at $126,000 on this current run. And I'm going to go into more detail on that in a second, because I've actually added 2 new features to these models, and that is that they now output what they believe the highest price Bitcoin will reach over the next 60 days is, and the lowest price Bitcoin will reach over the next 60 days. And this is a new kind of like alpha feature. Okay. So like this is untested. I did my best on it. I tried to use as much of the framework as I could to build these features into the models. But, I don't know, but consider them in like extremely early alpha version, and they're, put your like low confidence in them. But they do give you some sort of maybe a feeling or an indicator or temperature read on how things could potentially play out. And again, I'm going to share those numbers in just a second. The new upgraded 60-day model outputted a slightly different and a slightly higher prediction for where it believes the price of Bitcoin will sit in the next 60 days. It says that on or around September 11th, it believes the price of Bitcoin will sit around $128,000. So the first version is saying $126,000. The second upgraded version is saying around $128,000. What's really interesting about these two models is that they're run completely separate, meaning like each model cannot see what the other one is outputting, the other one is thinking, and the other one is predicting. And they actually, because of the way that they're built, they go out into like different trees of thought. So like the first model might like consider certain factors that the second model doesn't even look at, and it's like looking at other different predictive factors. And because of that, there's always this opportunity for these two models to output like wildly different predictions. There's no reason that they should have the exact same prediction, which kind of gives me maybe more confidence in the prediction that both of them kind of came to almost the exact same conclusion, off by about $2,000. So both of them completely separate came to near identical, the same conclusion, and that is that they believe around September 11th, we'll be sitting at either 126K if you're believing the old model, they got it correct last time, or 128K if you're believing the new upgraded model. Now, going back to the old 60-day model, it also outputted a high and a low it believes Bitcoin will hit over the next 60 days, as well as a confidence level associated with that prediction. And I want to preface this by saying, like upfront, that the confidence level that the model outputted for its high and low price is currently sitting at medium. So it doesn't currently have like a high level of confidence that this is going to correctly be the high or low. So take that into context. It currently has a medium level of belief on its high and low. And think of it like this way, like the model's looking at a ton of different factors. And if there's something like maybe a really solid setup, like, you got really low leverage or, a certain environment, price has been stable for a certain amount of time, and liquidity conditions are increasing, maybe it's like, oh, wow, there's a high level of confidence that we're going to do this thing next because I've seen this pattern before, and 9 times out of 10, it does this. Where right now, the setup is more confusing for the model. It's not as like precise of a setup. It has less confidence that this setup is going to do the exact thing it anticipates because maybe this model, 5 times out of 10 goes up, and then the other 5 times out of 10 goes down, or 6 times out of 10 it goes up, 5 times out of 10, or 4 times out of 10 it goes down. So it has a lower level of confidence in its prediction for the high and the low. So that's my preface for it. And the old 60-day model is predicting that over the next 60 days, we're going to see a low of around $112,000. So the lowest point that Bitcoin's going to hit over the next 60 days is $112,000. And it's saying that the highest point that Bitcoin's going to hit over the next 60 days is $141,000. And what's really actually interesting about this prediction is when it believes that the price of Bitcoin is going to hit these two numbers, which I'll get into in just a second. The upgraded 60-day model predicts that we're going to see a low over the next 60 days of around 105K. So it's actually predicting that we're going to go a bit lower than the old model is predicting, and that we're going to see a high over the next 60 days of around 140K, which is almost identical to what the other model is predicting. And again, these models are completely separate. So when they're coming to these conclusions, they're coming to these conclusions completely separate, and in some cases on different data sets. So both of them are saying, hey, a high of around 141, the first model, or 140K, the second model. And they're a little bit different on the low, which the first one's saying a low of 112K, and the second one's saying a low of 105K, but within the same general realm of price range. And before I get to when this model believes that we're going to hit that high and the low price from these two ranges, I do want to say once again that the way you should view this model is more of an indicator, like a Bitcoin golden cross, like any other indicator you use, not as an oracle, not as wizard level accuracy. The first time was a fluke. It was like pure luck that it hit the exact price on the exact day. The second time was more in line with what you'd expect. So it hit the exact price, but it was off by 5 days. It wasn't like the timing wasn't exact because it doesn't have perfect data. You should expect the same thing with this. It's not going to be, it's like a temperature gauge on like things should be about here. This should be about the magnitude, but it's not a wizard. It can't predict perfectly every single outcome and every single thing that's going to happen over the next 2 months time frame. There's a lot that could happen over a 2-month time frame. And I will say that at some point, this model will be wrong. Like there's just matter of fact, like everyone gets it wrong sometimes. And there's no reason to believe that this model won't get it wrong. Like part of my trading strategy using these models accounts for the fact that like sometimes this model will be off. It will make a prediction that does not come to light, that it doesn't actually happen. That is always something that could happen with these. The moment that somebody makes a model that's 100% accurate, it's like game over. Like if you can predict everything that's going to happen and you never miss, it is game over. Like you're going to make so much money, it's ridiculous. Okay, so like if I could build that, I'd be like a giga billionaire. So this model will make mistakes. It will be off, but it has up until this point shown that it has some predictive edge, just like any indicator, just like a Bitcoin golden cross or a death cross, or like what all these other indicators that people use that aren't 100% accurate, but they do have some level of predictive edge that we trust them and kind of like use it in our general accounting of how things might play out. Okay, so now as far as the timing of when the model thinks we're going to see that high price and we're going to see that low price, both models basically see the price of Bitcoin running up into late July, early August. And they anticipate that high, or whatever it is, if it's 140K or whatever, happening in that time period. And then they expect the price to retrace over August and into early September, where we see that low. So we go all the way from 100, which this sounds brutal if true, but again, it currently only has a medium confidence. So maybe trust this piece a little bit less. Right now, the only proven prediction that has like some sort of predictive edge is that final prediction. The high and low is more untested and more just kind of like fun. We'll see if it kind of plays out. But again, give it less, even the model is saying it has only medium confidence. But it's basically saying that from that point, it sees price going down into early September, which is typically like a week. This is like a weaker season in crypto, to where, the first model is saying it'll go as low as 112K. The second model is saying it'll go as low as 105K. And then from there, it'll rebound back up to that September 11th date being around 126,000 or 128,000. So basically a big giant run up all the way to 140,000, and then a huge dip August into September, all the way down to 105 or 112, and then kind of a rebound back up to that 126 or 128K level. And just to clarify, again, this is not my personal prediction. This is what the model is saying, and this is what the model is saying with medium level confidence. I'm going to say this like over and over, medium level confidence, because I know some of you guys, if that ends up being incorrect, are going to literally just light up the comments, and I'm going to be like, shut up. I told you medium level confidence. This is what the model was saying, which means it's kind of like it's not quite sure. And so I would give a higher degree of error for that high and low price, at least for this first prediction. And then we'll see how it plays out. We'll see, how close that ends up being and how much we can trust that over time. That's how these things work. It's a fun test. It's a fun experiment. And over time, you see how if it's on point or if it's not on point. And right now, my 2-week model, which is something I don't share publicly on my YouTube channel, something I reserve for the Obsidian Council. I post updates every couple days, at least once a week, on the 2-week model and what it's saying the price of Bitcoin is going to do. Right now, that does line up with the 60-day model. So it is, I'll say in general, that 2-week model is pointing towards higher prices for Bitcoin over the next 2 weeks. By the way, if you're interested in joining the Obsidian Council, I share a ton of more details. And again, as I just mentioned, updates on the 2-week model, my entire portfolio every time I buy and sell, and just a lot of updates on in general macro, the markets. I do weekly video market updates on where we are in the cycle and all kinds of details around that. As well as every Friday, we have a weekly Q&A on the markets where we all get together, talk about the markets, what's going on, different projects, etc. If you're interested in joining, that's currently closed to new members, but you can join the waitlist in the description of this video. But my personal take is historically, at least from my own experience, every time we get a new all-time high, we typically do kind of see some sort of retrace after. Not always. There is the, when things start really heating up and getting bullish, it kind of just keeps going. Like we have retraces, every now and then, but we do kind of just continue running up, which I don't know. Like right now, the price does keep like going higher. Like it keeps going higher, and then the next day it's higher, and the next day it's higher. So, maybe we're at the start of something big and price is going to keep moving up. But my gut take is based on previous past all-time high breaks. We typically do have some sort of retest to the bottom. So I am kind of anticipating at some point over the next 14 days, seeing something like that. But maybe this is that 1 out of 10 times that we don't see it. I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens, and I guess we'll see what happens over the next 60 days if this prediction it ends up being the third correct prediction in a row, or if finally the model misses on one of these predictions. If it does end up missing and is incorrect on this prediction, it's not like I'm going to throw it out and be like, oh my gosh, this is useless. Just like I wouldn't throw out a golden cross if it misses one time in a row. If it's consistently missing, yeah, I'll throw it out. Obviously, it's nonsense at that point, but it's been correct. It's been eerily correct 2 times in a row now. The 14A model has been correct enough for me to make quite a bit of money off of it. And so I'm going to keep going forward. I'm going to keep improving these things and see how they continue to progress over time. As always, if this video is helpful, make sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the little bell next to it to be notified each time I release a new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week.